right? We're 2 days post election, right? Or 3 days, November 5th. Well, assuming the next day is when people really started to understand what was happening. But as business owners, I think it's interesting to, regardless of what aisle you fall, what side of the aisle you fall on, knowing what um, is happening at Capitol Hill in terms of policies and how the country is working together or not, or how they're working with other countries or not. Um, you should always at least keep tabs on it. I'm by no means a politician. Wouldn't even say I take a deep dive into politics really in any regard ever, but I do keep tabs on what's being said and being done and who's in office and all these things. So curious your thoughts on what impacts to our business, our little old business here in Charlotte, North Carolina, is going to be based on the current election results, not just with the presidency, but local elections and how things have swayed or not here in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, fun topic. Could be very divisive. We're going to try not to do that, but I would say we've been doing this long enough now to know and just old enough to have experienced this. Anytime there's an election leading up to it, usually the 3 to 6 months leading up to the election, there's a drop off in business normally, depending on what industry you're in. And why is that? It was especially true for us this past election because people were just so on edge. What is going to happen? You saw it everywhere in almost every YouTube video I was seeing, even stuff that was not related to politics. People talked very openly about this anxiety they were feeling about something big is going to happen. There's something on the move. And so people, not to mention the economy, obviously the economy really has put people in a tough spot to where they didn't have the extra income. So we've talked about this many times, but because we are in what's considered a luxury service category, meaning it's not a necessity. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC, those are necessity services. And almost go to a neighborhood with 100 homes, and in a 5 to 10 year span, virtually 100% of those homes will have leveraged one of those services probably multiple times versus junk removal. In that same time period, those 100 homes, how many have used or leveraged junk removal services? Maybe 10%. I mean, if we get crazy, we could say 20%, but it's nowhere near the numbers. So because of that, it's just its own category in some ways. And so it's a luxury service because it's for people that can afford it. Not everyone can afford junk removal. Instead, they will call their friend, call their cousin, call their brother, rent a U-Haul truck and do it themselves to save the money. So when the belts are tightened financially, this is a category where most people will just put it off completely or won't even consider it. So that happened 4 years ago as well. It happened again this past year for I'd say 6 months leading up to the election. We definitely saw a tightening. We saw a contracting where the economy and related to our business was concerned. Now, what kind of a bounce are we going to get? That's the question. I would say if what we're already seeing with the economy is going to be an indicator, I would say we're going to see a significant bounce to our business as well as the industry as a whole. So very encouraging right out of the gate already. I am as optimistic as I've ever been. And part of it is not just, again, our economy, but it's the world. If you look around at what's already happening, look at the discussions, again, no matter which side of the aisle you fall on, but look at the discussions that are already coming out from Russia, from China, the Middle East. Hezbollah I saw, and I think it was Hezbollah and what's the other one? Hamas have already come out and are talking about a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire. So you're already seeing where these other nations are coming out saying, "Hey, we're ready to talk. We're ready to make peace and to heal any wounds, financial or otherwise." That's only going to be good for us, right? So you and I are, believe I think the same way here, where strength is going to come through peace. But in order to have peace, you have to exhibit strength. And I think that is what the market was looking at. The market was looking at that one indicator and going, this looks better for us. The outlook is better and brighter because of this. So I'm very optimistic about what it means for our business and the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things. I think one of the things I would point to most notably being on this side of the fence of now running a business that I probably didn't realize as just a normal W-2 employee somewhere, just a normal citizen, however you want to coin it. But just knowing that what our expenses are, what it takes to run the business, how that will be impacted, I think positively based on the current, the administration elect is a positive outlook. So yeah, like what I think about inflation, like will it come down? Will with the corporate tax rates, will businesses have more money to spend? I think so, which is good for us. People should have more money to spend. Potentially, there's folks arguing like, oh no, they're going to have less money to spend because of tariffs, and that's going to get passed on to the consumer, which may be accurate, or tightening of anything, right? People may have less money actually to spend, disposable income to spend on a luxury service like junk removal. I tend to lean the other way. I think that folks are going to have more money to spend, and our services are going to be more required by residential customers. But I'm more eager to see how it's impacted on the commercial side with corporations now having, because of the leniency that Trump brings around taxes specifically for corporations. Like he's big on lowering that tax rate, I think. I'm eager to see what that looks like for our business and how we benefit positively off of that. But further, like when you talk about junk removal and the things that we consume, most notably like the high ticket stuff like trucks and fuel, I wouldn't have thought about things like energy or our relationships with other countries, or just things that we acquire from overseas countries and other leaders and places around the world. But like when we go, like if we're going to go out with, which we're considering now, going out and purchasing a new truck, the price of that truck significantly impacts our business. What we can acquire it for, is it 90 grand today or is it 70 grand? A massive difference. Interest rates tied to that. What's our monthly note on it look like? And then, oh, by the way, like, are we paying 5% of our monthly revenue to fuel every single month? Or is it now dropped down to 3% because, energy is cheaper and oil is cheaper? Like those things are, I'm eager, like I said earlier, I'm eager to see how our impact on the expense side is positively impacted by the new administration coming in, just based on some of the policies that I think that they're going to enact, regardless of all the noise. And then the last thing I would say about it is, like, I think it's just an interesting time that we're living in. Like the amount of information available to all of us now is insanity. And we saw a lot of it, going through the 2020 election, of course, just due to technology, but like it's only going to get worse, I guess is the right word to use. But like the fact that, back in the Al Gore days or the Bill Clinton days, like my parents, your parents, like they didn't have access to all of this information. I'm sure a lot of the information they had was misinformation, bad information, of course, but like just the amount of, I guess, rhetoric around elections now is absolutely insanity. And the outlets that you can pull from, you go to X, you go to any social media site, you go to the big news networks, if you still read papers, like newsletters, I mean, everybody's talking about it. And that in and of itself just makes for such a whirlwind of like, how do you even know? Like, I'm sure a lot of people went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be a landslide victory for Trump. Other people went into it like Harris is going to win. Yeah. Like, how do you even know? Like back in the old days, like you could probably trust a lot of like the early projections, like, oh, Bill Clinton's got this pretty much locked up. We just got to go to the ballot, the ballot boxes and make it official. I don't think anybody really knew going into this election. Like people have feelings, people have strong opinions one way or the other. But it's like, how do you really know? Like based on the information here, so just an interesting time that we're living in, I guess.
Well, we'll wrap it up because, we wanted to keep this one as short as we could today. And the last thing I would add is the point you made, though, was a great point about if we look at just our expenditures from today versus 4 years ago, man, our fuel costs were half of what they are today, right? Because the cost of gasoline was almost half. I mean, it's come down now here recently in the past, 6 months or so, fairly significant to what it was a couple of years ago. But for a while there, our fuel costs were more than double what they were 4 years ago, with the previous administration. That's just a fact. Same thing with interest rates. When we look at housing, the vast majority of Americans were optimistic about housing. They were buying homes, they were refinancing, they were getting incredibly low, record low interest rates. And that all changed like in a big way to where it's the exact opposite. So I think that optimism is already making its way back. I know it is for us. We look at that and go, man, if we get to see what we saw 4 years ago with some of those categories, that's a lot of savings. A lot of savings, which goes towards growth. It goes towards new employees, new locations, new vehicles, you name it. So I'm very optimistic about what it could represent for us. I know it's, again, this is a potentially divisive topic that we wanted to be very careful about. But from our perspective, it's a great thing to see what what I think is coming. If it's true with Elon taking a position as the director, what is the term? The director of government efficiency, I believe. Doge, DOGE, I think is brilliant. If he comes in, and I think he said he thinks he could save $2 trillion right off the top and almost immediately. We just think of that mindset. If we actually have someone coming in, again, this to me should be bipartisan. If you have someone coming in that is saying there is an insane amount of bloat that we need to get rid of. One of the best examples, Davis, if you haven't seen it, there's a video, go to YouTube, type in congressional hearing, bushings. That's all you need to type in. And you're going to see a video of a congressman holding up a bag of bushings. You know what bushings are? Okay, so they're going to look kind of like this ring. Okay, so it's going to look kind of like this, but they're going to be a little bit wider. But these bushings that he's holding up are from a military surplus. And if you go to Lowe's right now and buy these bushings, you can get them, at least the plastic ones, for about 78 cents. You could probably get the metal ones. Let's call it even double that. So let's call it a couple dollars. In this bag he's holding, I'm going to guess there's 100 bushings in this bag. So if you bought these from Lowe's, worst case, you're talking $200. Guess what the military is paying for this bag of bushings that this congressman holds up and shows to this whoever he's interviewing or who he's talking to? Take a wild guess what this bag of bushings.
$1 million.
Okay, you went a little too far. $90,000. $90,000 when you can buy the virtually identical bushings at Lowe's for $200. So It's just common sense. When you have someone that comes in and says, I have no loyalty to anyone, anything other than saving money. How do we get rid of all this bloat? Because ultimately it's us. We're paying for that. We're paying for that overage. So when you start having that kind of a mindset, which we haven't had in a long, long time, I think we're going to reap the benefits of that very quickly. So I look at it as a win all the way around.
Well, and what's going on with the banks is huge too. Like any business that has a line of credit, has bank cards, has credit cards through banks. If you're exploring needing access to capital in any way, even if it's private investors, the interest rates and everything and not that Trump or his administration can have a massive impact on like the Fed rates because it's an independent organization that does that, but still the things that he can enact, the people he can put in place and all that stuff has a total impact on small business, big business, and the capital that you do or don't have access to and what it costs you to get it, which we know firsthand has been expensive for the last few years. So yeah, just thought we'd touch on that, not go too far into it because again, I like to think you and I are both level-headed regardless. And so never going to sit here and be like, there's only one way forward, always, open-minded to all ideas, but worth discussing and understanding what the impacts are to administration and policies that it has on small businesses in this country. So we'll end it there.